we do have all of the task force members here. I believe Councilman Torrance is actually at some events that I would normally be at with him, and so I appreciate his filling in for me. And we do have the entire membership on, as well as several members of the public. We will not be taking public testimony today. We will have other meetings for public testimony. We also announced that there will be another public meeting of this group on December 15th, and we'll talk a little bit more about the content of that meeting and get a feel for what the task force is interested in. But my interest is to hear from additional users of the site. And so when we get towards the end of the meeting, we'll talk more about that. But if we wanted to go ahead with Dana and Khalil for some housekeeping items.
Dana, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to make sure that everyone has on their calendar that obviously the next meeting will be December 15, 7 p.m., just as the councilwoman shared earlier. And before that, on Thursday, December 11 at 4 p.m. will be our second swearing-in ceremony for the task force members. That'll be 4 p.m. Here at City Hall in the Curran Room. The site visits are scheduled for January 10th. We still need to figure out the start time and where exactly the sites that'll be visited, but just hold that date, January 10th, which is a Saturday, for the site visits. And that is it. Any questions? All right, Khalil, DM Sayed, anything to add?
No, thank you. Just actually one point. I just want to make sure to kind of have, if the mayor and when the mayor asks, just to kind of think about when do we think now. We know we're not going to be able to deliver by the end of December. It's just the final report of the final recommendations. Kind of have an idea. I want to have an idea, say we're going to be needing another 2 months, 3 months, sometime in March, sometime in February, just to have an idea what we have in mind in case that discussion come along.
Thank you. I don't know that we have the answer right this second, but when I spoke with him before the last meeting, asked him for more time and sort of ballparked it for another 2 months. But certainly we can have more of a discussion as we get through this meeting and the next meeting. I think we might have a better idea. But yeah, I appreciate that. The other thing is that Dana, is the website up or not quite yet?
I forgot to look and see, but it should be up. We approved all of the content last Friday, so it should be up, but I didn't test.
So if you could take a moment to just go ahead and do that and then put the link in the chat if it's up, that would be super.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's not up, we'll make sure to get everybody the information. What we have on the website is basically the recordings of each of the meetings, the agendas and any notes that came from those meetings, and the membership of the task force and general calendar. So super basic, but at least you see everything in one place. And also any studies or any other resources that have come about as a result of the discussion. Okay, so what we wanted to do tonight is to talk more about what the plans are for the area. As you know, this conversation has been going on for quite some time. This is not new conversation. I would say over the matter of 5 years. I've been on the council for 5 years and the conversation started before me. And so because of the interest for the Remington community to have a neighborhood plan, which Samantha will present on in just a moment, as will the planning department. And get a sense for what those development plans are in the area, immediate area, and also for the neighborhood, just to provide some context as to why this even came up in the first place. In addition to the fact that what we heard from Mr. Bennett last meeting about the needs of the DPW workers. So we'll be just adding, that to context as well. My thoughts for the next meeting, we'll talk about that when we're done with this meeting, but is to hear from more stakeholders when we're done with this presentation, is to talk about more, hear from more stakeholders. But I wanted to maybe start with Marie from the Department of Planning. She is our our planner, our actual planner in our area. She was not around when this plan was being done, but I have asked her to come and just give sort of an overview, not just of the Remington neighborhood plan, but sort of planning principles in general, things like that. So, Marie, I saw you on here. Are you ready? Do I need to?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. Do you need?
Can I share my screen?
Yeah, let me give you sharing privileges. WebEx is not as easy to use as.
Oh, I think I can. Let me see it. Tell me if you can see it.
Yeah, great, perfect. Cool.
Okay.
I pinned myself on the page. If I'm in your way, I can unpin myself.
No, I actually can't see any of you.
Okay.
So if you have questions, let me know. But as Councilwoman said, my name is Marie McSweeney Anderson. I use both she and they pronouns. I'm the Northern District Planner, so that means that my district is from the city-county line pretty much down to North Avenue, from 83 over to Loch Raven. So that is 56 wonderful, beautiful neighborhood statistical areas. So as Councilwoman said, I'll give a little bit of context about our neighborhood plan policy. I think that's just helpful before we talk about the Remington neighborhood plan. A lot of our plans are community managed plans versus city managed plans. And I know folks from Remington will also be giving a presentation tonight, so I won't go as in depth as they likely will. And the plan actually was adopted by Planning Commission before I came to planning. I just finished up my third year at planning. But I will also mention our comprehensive plan and a little bit about the land use planning that happened as part of this past comprehensive planning process.
Thanks, Marie. That's perfect. That's the overview I was looking for. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. So about our neighborhood plans policy. So a lot was happening in 2018, apparently, at the planning department. But if folks have been through a planning policy in your own neighborhood, you know that in order to have the plan adopted through Planning Commission, there are a certain number of requirements that you have to meet. So we'll review those tonight. But just as some background, the Planning Commission is responsible for preparing and updating plans showing the physical development of the city. So the Planning Department has a lot of jurisdiction over land use. And so, I'm really grateful to be welcomed into this conversation, especially as we're talking about land use in the city of Baltimore. So I think DOP can be a good resource for this group here. But I do want to mention that there are city managed plans in addition to the community managed plans. And so the city managed plans and ones that are really being propelled by the Department of Planning are Inspire plans. So if you've had a neighborhood school that has been rebuilt in your neighborhood, we look at the 1/4 to 1/2 mile area around the school. I'm working on finishing one for Walter P. Carter right now. We just kicked off a process for Montebello. Links This is a little bit older, but for folks who have been around for a minute, you might remember the North Avenue corridor, the Greenmount corridor having a links plan, and then the Green Network plan, which is still being implemented. So some of the procedures and the guidelines, in order to have a neighborhood plan be adopted by Planning Commission, DOP really has to be a part of the process for the neighborhood plan. So when folks are starting to think through the idea for a plan, ensuring to pull planning into the process at an early time, so that we are just aware that it's going on, can participate and be a part of the steering committee. There have to be specific proposed boundaries. And I think down at the bottom, you'll see that oftentimes in the city of Baltimore, there are more than one association for a specific neighborhood. We call them neighborhood statistical areas. They don't necessarily align with neighborhood association boundaries. And this is for data purposes. And the neighborhood statistical areas really align with census tracts. Much to some folks' chagrin, but we need to ensure that there's one plan for a specific area and that folks do their best to pull in all members of the community, even if there are multiple associations. There has to be an advisory committee, and this is a pretty low bar, but there have to be at least 3 public meetings during the process. And when the plan comes to Planning Commission, a huge part of that presentation is like, how did you communicate? How did you pull folks into the process to make sure that the process was clear and transparent and folks felt welcomed into it? And that there are meetings with stakeholders. So whether that be property owners, if folks are recommending zoning changes, institutions that own land, and get the input of other agencies that folks are asking for recommendations from. And the plan must be consistent with master plans and city policies. There's lots of great ideas and it has to be in alignment and doable. So as part of that, we require implementation charts. So you'll see at the end of pretty much all of the plans that come out of the planning department and all of the plans that have been adopted since 2018. If you go to the end, you'll see short-term, medium-term, long-term, and really who are all of the folks who are responsible for taking on the different pieces of the plans. If there's any other funding that folks would like to pursue, that's really up to them to align with state and federal guidelines. So what are some of the benefits of having a neighborhood plan? Often, I think lots of communities go through lots of planning processes, but not all of them get plans adopted through Planning Commission. And so, sometimes I'll go to neighborhoods and they're like, well, we already have a plan, and that's wonderful and that's great. And that's definitely a starting place. It's just kind of going a little bit over and a little bit above. But neighborhood plans that get adopted through Planning Commission really have longevity. They go on the Planning Department's website. So they're publicly accessible, even if they're on like neighborhood association websites. But it's really the stamp of approval from the city, from the Planning Commission that says, hey, we reviewed this. This was done in a fair and transparent manner. And also, like, we agree to align resources behind these plans. And so when it comes to the CIP process, which is the capital planning process, which the planning department oversees, we can say, hey, this was a recommendation that came forth in this neighborhood's plan. And oftentimes when agencies are gathering recommendations from the community about what they should spend money on, they ask, has this been adopted through the Planning Commission? Before I move on, any questions about neighborhood plans policy?
Any questions about the general overview around neighborhood plans? I don't see any. Go ahead, Marie. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll just give a brief overview here because I know Gria is giving a presentation as well. And I can share this presentation afterwards as well. The link to the plan is in the presentation, but it can also, like I said, be found on the planning department's website. And so the recommendations that are coming out of the Remington neighborhood plan really have to do with residential, commercial, industrial, open space, mobility, and public safety. And I just wanted to bring folks' attention to the goals, the stated goals of the plan. And number 3 says, retain its existing commercial and industrial activity while welcoming new businesses, providing job opportunities to residents, increasing social interaction, and strengthen the neighborhood's economic base. And so I think you'll hear tonight from folks who live in Remington who are part of the planning process. But as a planner, my understanding for Remington's wants is that it's a walkable community, particularly as it has to do with the commercial and industrial uses. And we'll take a look at the land use map, the proposed land use map. But these are some of the recommendations that really align with what you're discussing here tonight. So non-residential development that represents the neighborhood's walkable mixed-use character, adaptive reuse of underutilized historic buildings. We welcome conversions of old industrial and commercial sites that are compatible with existing residential community, and so on and so forth. And I will say that it is really helpful that GRIA has a land use committee to really work in lockstep with agencies like ours. I'm going to let Remington folks answer questions about the Remington neighborhood plan, but happy to answer any questions.
Yep.
And then the comprehensive master plan. So hopefully folks, this was a 2-year process that culminated in 2024. So hopefully folks attended or have, the comprehensive master plan is 400 pages long. So it's like, if you really want to get into it, I highly recommend, printing it all out, putting it next to your bedside table and digging. I really I love the history section. I think they did a really great job on it. But there's a link to the plan, but it has 3 kind of like main portions. One talks about growth and retention. Another is policy recommendations. And then the last is area planning. But for folks who don't know, through the state of Maryland, each jurisdiction, so each county is required to go through the comprehensive master planning process every 10 years. And our last comprehensive plan was actually in 2006. So due to the pandemic, everything was kind of like in upheaval. And so the state pushed it back. And so we were allowed to have until 2024 to do the plan. And there was, a 2-year process of engagement. So the planning department had 20 different organizations be a part of the community engagement and leadership team. So it essentially means that they were consultants for us. So these were organizations that had specialties with seniors, with youth, with Spanish-speaking populations, with targeted populations in the city of Baltimore. And there was funding for them to host their own engagement sessions. So that was one way that engagement happened. Hopefully folks here came or participated in our public open houses that happened in all of the planning districts throughout the city, of which I think there are 9. But I know that there was at least 2 in the Northern Planning District. And then public comment. So there were over 1,700 comments from 100 very communicative residents, which was super helpful in the process. And then the review process for the comprehensive master plan, like I said, it's over 400 pages long. So there were super reviewers, so folks in different agencies. So like DHCD reviewed all of the housing related recommendations. Rec and Parks reviewed all of the recreation related, as well as organizational experts. So that's folks who like Baltimore Green Space, or, folks in environment, or who are working in housing, who we asked to give feedback to. And then there's state review. So the Maryland Department of Planning, Department of Transportation, State Highway, Port of Baltimore, et cetera, all of these alphabet soups. And then for city review, this is a plan that goes all the way up to the mayor. So Planning Commission, if folks have been through the legislative process, first it goes to Planning Commission, then it goes to City Council, and then it's signed by the mayor officially. And so for the first time, as part of the comprehensive master plan, in other jurisdictions, there has been proposed land use maps. That hasn't happened in Baltimore until this past comprehensive master plan. And it's really to think through, folks might be familiar with the rezoning process. And the rezoning process really just looks at like one property without taking into account what is happening in the neighborhood around. So instead of just doing it kind of like spot by spot, we have spot rezoning is a term that is used that is actually illegal, but we took a comprehensive look at the city of Baltimore. What are some trends that are happening in the different neighborhoods, but also like what do we foresee as potential? So if you look at the proposed land use map, and I put a link in here, you'll see some potential TOD zones for the future. That's transit-oriented development. But it allows us to think through, comprehensively what is happening in the city, and how do we make decisions, particularly with zoning or rezoning, that might like shift and create neighborhoods to really become the land use that we want to see. So I'll put a link to the proposed land use map in the chat when I can see you all again. But you want to go to general land use, and then for this particular area, general land use zoning conflicts. So in Remington in particular, there are a lot of recommended changes, specifically along Sisson, Huntington, and Howard Street. And it's really a shift from, folks are familiar with the heavy industrial uses, the auto-related uses, to more of this pedestrian-oriented commercial. So in terms of zoning, this is, I zoning, or C3, C4, which is really auto related, and then kind of like down zoning a little bit to the C1, C2, which you see more so along like pedestrian corridors. And then, like I said, we took public comment. We presented to GRIA's land use committee. I presented to, I think, a few different Charles Village's land use committee throughout this process as well. A couple different neighborhood associations. And then there was the public testimony process. So I think that's it. Happy to answer more questions, but
Marie, do you have access to the land use map right now that you can share the visuals? Do you mind?
Let me share my screen again. Just give me 1 sec.
No problem. I know it's I think it was in the presentation, but I think it'd be helpful to visualize what you were talking about, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I have it pulled up for Remington.
Thank you.
So all of the areas that you see outlined in red are proposed changes. And so as we're looking along here on Sisson Street, you can see that the land use category is industrial light right now. Office, commercial, vehicle related, and really the recommendation here is for this mixed use, predominantly pedestrian oriented commercial.
So the orangish is the pedestrian mixed use commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the blue is residential high density. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look, task force members, where it says Sisson Street, and then that perpendicular line is 29th Street. So you've got Sisson sort of right on that corner there. I think the Burger King is what, that yellow spot right there?
Further down.
Okay, I see where you are. So where I was talking about was 28th Street. So you're right. 29th Street is that sort of curve right there. And so the Burger King doesn't look like it's showing up because it's not moving anywhere. So, yeah. And then that
Can you see
purple,
when I pop this open?
what's that?
Can you see this when I pop it open?
Yes.
So you can
Yes.
see what it is currently. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I can put this link in the chat too, so folks can explore on their own.
Super. Thank you. And what's the purple as well?
That's industrial.
That's the light industrial or heavy industrial? It's just industrial. Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as you can see, the bright pink is TOD, and that's for the Penn Station train tracks. But yeah, I'll pop this in the chat for folks to explore.
Great. Thanks for taking the time with us, Marie, and for agreeing to be a part of this process. I have I have had my doubts and trepidations about the land use plan, but I am going to keep my thoughts to myself right this second. This gives you an idea of what the community, had feedback on. This is a community that probably did have a lot of feedback on that particular piece. There are other constituents in Remington that feel like they did not have a say in the land use plan. So just sort of keep that in mind. But in general, this is what is out there. And I very much appreciate that overview also, Maria, about the comp plan. Task force members, are there any questions for Marie relative to sort of the planning department's process, the comprehensive planning process? There's plenty of links for you to go back and take a look at a few things later on, if that's helpful for you. Anybody with questions? If you do have questions, you can unmute yourself. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead.
Hey, probably not for Marie, but for you, Odette, I think at some point we will have to discuss if you believe that the planning process was not fully inclusive of the entire neighborhood, because we need to understand if there's people who we need to talk to about this before making any decisions.
Mm-hmm. I guess I opened myself up to that. So I will let you know that there's some people just on a very specific part of the neighborhood, not near Sisson, that felt like they did not have a say. I don't know about the neighborhood planning process because I was not a council person at the time. So all I have vision of is the land use plan and the comprehensive planning process. And again, it is a plan. So if let's say the council person wants to rezone a property or set of properties that is counter to what the land use plan is, a council person has every right to do so, because that is a plan, and the council person, like myself, do rezoning through ordinance. And certainly that'll be, the land use plan will be part of the discussion, but it is not a veto of if the land use plan doesn't fit with what the council person does. And I think this is the first one, so there were definitely some challenges with input. It was mostly done through online. There may have been some meetings with big, maps on a table so people can discuss, similar to what we did during Transform. But a lot of it was, that there were, it was online. It was definitely not in Spanish. So I will say that I did vote against the comprehensive plan and land use plan. I was the only one. As a result of that. But I do think it's helpful for this conversation to understand sort of the broad sense of the comprehensive plan. There was a lot of input, for sure. In general, I think the land use plan, and I see you, Samantha, hold on one second. I think the land use plan, it was the first time we did it. So I'm going to give grace to the planning department, so that when we do this again in the next 10 years, that there's going to obviously be some technological advances, but I think there's a lot of lessons learned here, for next time. And so I will give you that. But I've heard from a couple of people in the neighborhood, and not just in Remington, but in other parts of the district, about the lack of being able to participate in the land use planning. Marie does have an excellent newsletter that talks about the like zoning things coming up and planning commission things coming up and CHAP things coming up. So I would advise that you subscribe to that. She did put that in the chat. And that will be super helpful to see kind of what other things are going on in that northern area. It's a very large area, so it's got. I think that she's the busiest in my district, of course, because we just do that. But I think that there's a lot of good information. There. So that's my take on things.
Thanks. And just to answer, Corey, I assume that you're referring to the comprehensive planning process. It's a yes and. So as the community engagement teams that I mentioned, the organizations that we contracted with, they were a part of the leadership team as well. But the planning department wrote the plan. Our data folks put together all of the maps and the data that you see in there. So this is a community managed plan. A city managed plan.
Yep.
And like I offered to Councilwoman Ramos, we're happy to help think through sites. I know that we have a lot of heads at this table, but if you would like support and site recommendations from the Department of Planning, we would be happy to supply those for you.
Yes, thank you. I think I'll send you once we're finished tonight, send you the list of what we're thinking about, and maybe get some of your staff's feedback on those. They're outside. Some of them are outside of your district, so we'll need some assistance there.
I think similarly, just the floodplain.
We're going to talk about that in just a second. Okay. For sure.
Yeah, so I'm just going to hang out here. I'll be in the background, so if folks have questions, let me know.
Great. Thanks a lot, Maria. I really appreciate your time in preparing that presentation for us. And it will be sent out to the members as well as posted on our website, so others can see it. Samantha, I know you had your hand up, but I'm also calling you next to talk a little bit more about the Remington plan. I do want, go ahead, Samantha.
Oh, I was going to say that my question was kind of covered already, so we're good.
Okay, great. But you wanted to, do you need to share something, or you want to add to the conversation around the neighborhood plan? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You should be able to share your screen.
Great.
There you go. Perfect.
Oh, sorry. Well, yeah, WebEx is different, huh?
It is. Yep, it's not as easy as Zoom, but you're on the right screen. You should just be able to push presentation and be able to get to us. Mm-hmm.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks. I am going to keep my camera off because my computer has been a little cranky today. But thanks for having me. Again, I'm Samantha Horn. I am the Secretary of the Greater Remington Improvement Association, GRIA, and the Vice Chair of this task force. So I will be talking specifically about the Remington Neighborhood Plan. And when I reference the land use, I'm referencing the GRIA Land Use Committee, not the Department of Planning land use project that was just discussed. Great. So the Baltimore Planning Commission accepted our neighborhood plan in early 2018. The plan provides guidance for our overall goals and programming and is utilized by the GRIA Land Use Committee, which meets monthly. But while this was adopted in 2018, it goes all the way back to 2008, beginning with a lot of informal outreach and planning. And then from 2013 to 2015, there were a number of public meetings and a 30-day comment period. It was approved in 2015 at a community meeting, at which point it was sent to the Department of Planning and was submitted to all the city agencies that we just heard from Marie, who reviews all these plans. It was updated, and there were more than 50 community members in attendance when it was approved by our community, and then accepted by the Department of Planning in 2018. Since then, we have also completed a neighborhood needs assessment. I just wanted to touch upon this to just kind of show that we are continually looking at these plans and assessing our neighborhood, just kind of checking in, seeing where the needs are. And that is kind of a supplement and parallel to this plan. We had 6 goals. Thank you, Marie, for highlighting them as well. Number 1 goal is to be a neighborhood where people want to live and work. We want people to come here and enjoy their time here. We also want to see a diverse stock of housing options. We want to really retain the businesses that have been here and also welcome new businesses. We want to maintain those public open spaces. We've done a lot of clean and green, a lot of pocket parks, and as well as we love being adjacent to some of the larger parks. And I think the highlight for this task force is that we want to be a place where community members can live, work, and play in a safe and clean environment, where public areas are kept clean and free of trash and debris. So talk about some of these challenges that our neighborhood has seen. They are not new. Bit of background on Remington. I'm not going to strive too hard, but just like a lot of the city, we saw a huge population decline in the 60s and 70s through the 80s and 90s. In the early 2000s, GRIA was founded, and we also saw a lot more residents thanks in part to home buying incentive programs and popularity among Micah and Hopkins students. So when it comes to guiding the future, the overwhelming majority of folks that worked with GRIA on this plan want to see a walkable, dense neighborhood. And something that I really love about looking back at that list is seeing how much progress we have made. We have some new apartment buildings, we have restaurants, we have bakeries. We're becoming a bakery neighborhood. If you haven't had Doppio or La Maison or Kitsch, please come enjoy your time. We have some retail. We regularly host Shop Small Remington Crawl, where you can see our stores, and we have pop-ups of smaller folks out front. We do, in fact, have a garden shop. We do not, in fact, have a full-service grocery store, nor do we have a lot of office buildings. And I think a lot of my peers would love to see more childcare available in the neighborhood. Marie also highlighted what we wanted to limit, right? So we want to limit some of these highly commercial, highly industrial things in the neighborhood, the junkyards, the storage, the warehouses. We also have 2 gas stations already. We do not want to see any more. So there's that. Do we have any questions yet? I can't.
Just keep going through your whole presentation and
right.
we'll take questions after. Yep.
Great. So there is a list of probably about 40 recommendations and action items in our full report. The full plan is, I think, 65 pages long. So I really just took some of them out that really highlight this task force. So as Marie also mentioned, we really want to see neighborhood scale commercial uses along Remington Ave, Huntington Ave, 28th and 29th Streets, and the minor corridors. We've seen some of these historic storefronts already renovated and in use. We work very closely with zoning regulations. And again, we ensure that Remingtonians can live, work, and play in a safe and sanitary environment. We want to be able to walk to all of these lovely things that we have in our neighborhood and develop a neighborhood that people want to come to. Marie, again, touched upon some of these as well. Glad to see we were on the same page, but especially the adaptive reuse of historic and industrial commercial buildings has been of interest to me personally. I think that's something that we've done pretty well here and we should keep doing. And we really want to encourage new non-residential development. And we want that to be in a manner that respects our walkable mixed use character. So I know I've been saying it in all of these meetings. I know we've been saying it publicly, but this really is some of the guidance for our neighborhood. So when we talk about Sisson Street, the idea for developing Sisson is not specific to the drop-off center. It was identified many years ago as that the drop-off center is likely not the best use of that site. So this is just a screenshot of a page from the report, and you'll see specifically Sisson Street is on there. So this is a location that the neighborhood has slated as an opportunity to reach many of the goals that we're trying to reach. And we have been working toward it for quite some time. I also did want to highlight that the same for the 2500 Huntington Avenue location. That is probably one of the larger parcels of land in central Baltimore. And we would love to see a long-term redevelopment of that site as well. We have a beautiful aerial view of Sisson Street. You'll see everything here. So in conclusion, the current location, leaving Sisson Street drop-off center as is not a neutral option. It does not align with the goals outlined in our neighborhood plan. Based on the task force meetings and the review of our plan, our recommendation right now is to pursue its closure. We have not historically worked toward finding a relocation for this because we as a neighborhood do not want this in our neighborhood anymore, and we would not ask for another neighborhood to take it on. Regarding 2500 Huntington, relocating it there not only does not align with the Remington neighborhood plan, because we would love to see those longer term redevelopments. Huntington Avenue has become a dangerous road. We have been slated for changes to be made there that have not been made there, and we fear that the increased traffic for, if it were considered to be an alternate site for this drop-off center, the increased traffic on Huntington Ave would be hostile to our neighbors because they would no longer be coming right on and off 83. I would also like to point out the proximity of that location to the Old Goucher neighborhood, which is a majority Black neighborhood and a historic neighborhood. You can find our plan at the griaonline.org, plans and reports. I am happy to field questions.
Thank you very much, Samantha. Really appreciate it. Looks like the link is on the chat, and we'll add it to the website as well. Any questions from task force members? Kevin, is that you raising your hand? No. Okay, so I appreciate that context. I wanted to just make sure that we had some context for our future discussions. Also, members, we had invited the Baltimore Development Corporation to our meeting, and they had initially accepted. And the reason that we wanted to bring them to this meeting is because they were the ones who brought to the city council, through the mayor's office and through the council president's office, the legislation to sell the Sisson property. The fact that they pulled out of being at our meeting today is unfortunate, but also not surprising. I have had several challenges with the Baltimore Development Corporation. They are not transparent. And the fact that they do not want to be a part of this discussion is very problematic to me. So I don't know that I will be inviting them again to this meeting, although I will take input from task force members. But if they want to fight for a development that they have said that they wanted and wanted to sell the land in order to do that development, I would think that they would show up to our meeting. So that is all I have to say about that, and we can get some input on that later. But I do think that it is unfortunate. And they had promised that they would be here and then said that they cannot be here. That is a problem. It's a huge problem. So the next piece of our agenda, I want to go over, let me find my file here. I want to go over what we have.
Councilwoman, this is Khalil. Just if I'd like to add just something to that
Sure.
point, if possible. Just, I don't think the door is shut on that thing. We still have some more conversation to have with BDC within the next couple of days about that request. The response that we got, we didn't get it from the top. So I'll reserve the right until having further conversations with the top at BDC to figure out what the next step is. But I'll just, since we realized that earlier today, I just reached out to the leadership for some explanation, and we'll get some to figure out what the next step is. But just to let everybody know.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We have a specific cadence to our meetings to try to get certain themes taken care of at each meeting. So this kind of breaks our cadence here, and also is going to extend the time that we can give recommendations to the mayor, because the next meeting I would really like to have other stakeholders talk to us about their uses of the site as well, and how important it is to them. So if they do want to come before us, I think that would be a helpful part of the discussion. But I certainly can't design an entire meeting around their schedule when we've got a cadence and a schedule that we've been following. But I appreciate the discussion. So, task force members, if you still feel strongly either way, please let us know about your thoughts on that. While I shift over to the next part of our agenda. So what I wanted to do here is just go over if we, again, the main decisions that we have to make in our discussions are whether or not to close the site completely move the site and where we think it should move, or keep the site where it is. So in the context of thinking about if we move the site, where we might want to go, remember at our last meeting that we have, we started to narrow the list. And so I'm going to share with you a little spreadsheet that I put together. I don't have all of the notes on it, but I do want to just, so that we have for context what our next part of our discussion is. It's a very simple chart, not very exciting at all. Aha, excellent. Let's see if this will come up. Can you all see that? Did that come up for you? No. Okay. This is so frustrating. Okay, 1 second. There we go.
Do you need me to make you a presenter, or you?
Nope, I got it. Sorry about that.
Okay.
But I can't see you all because this is WebEx at its best. Did that show up for you all? No, never mind. I'll try it again. Did that show up for you?
Yes.
I'm seeing your spreadsheet.
It shows up.
You're seeing a spreadsheet.
Something.
Excellent. Great. Okay, excellent. So remember in our last meeting, we talked about the list that was presented to us. So keeping into consideration was Howard and 25th, which is basically the Remington property that was discussed earlier. Under the JFX Falls Way area, and then 400 North Avenue. Remember, we talked a little bit about this closed landfill at Monument and Edison Highway. Councilman Jones reached back out to me after the meeting and said, no, we cannot, absolutely cannot do it there. There is a really exciting, awesome development that's going to be happening there. I don't know if I'm allowed to say what it is, but it's really very awesome and exciting. So we're going to take that off. So we removed from consideration the Falls Road, Potts and Callahan site, Camp Small, the Salt Dome, that little light rail entrance, the ball fields, and 26th Street. So we really narrowed it to just these three, unless anybody else. John, I know you asked me about one site, and I haven't added to it, but we can talk a little bit about it. So I just wanted to let you know that this is where I heard we were at the last meeting, and hopefully that also goes with what you had also envisioned. And in terms of going through each one, we do want to visit all of these if that's what you're interested in.
Sorry,
yes,
I know you can't see, but I think in our meeting last Thursday, the Guilford and Falls Way, we did discuss.
Yep, I'm going there next. Yep,
Okay,
absolutely.
all right, I'll let you go.
Yep.
Sorry.
No worries. So we heard about the Howard Remington 25th Street today, but we I think want to go ahead to visit that site. Marie, you can certainly talk about the Guilford Falls Way. When we met last week, one of the planners who is involved in the floodplain work let us know that site is actually in the floodplain. And I know that there is no water nearby, but there is actually water underneath. That's the case, Marie?
Yes.
So we'd have to, Amy's our floodplain manager, but it's within, I think it's like the 5-year or 10-year floodplain.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll get, do you happen to have the map in front of you?
No, but I can try to pull it up on CodeMap.
Okay, I don't have the flood thing on CodeMap, so we can do that. And then the 400 North Avenue one, remember this one, Councilman Torrance has a lot of trepidation about because of its proximity also to Reservoir Hill. So, you know, I do think that we should go and see all three of these in addition to the Sisson Street site as well as Bowley's Lane, given the conversations that we had last time. Does that work for everybody? Other task force members, do you want to, you know, do you want to take a look at these? I think what we want to do is actually just have a sense of these sites. Right now we've been stuck in WebEx land or the chamber, and we want to make sure that we're actually looking at, you know, all of the possibilities. So thank you. So if you all can see right along the JFX, it is called the Jones Falls Expressway for a reason, because it is over the Jones Falls. And so we do have, if people were concerned about the Falls Road being part of the floodplain, and then, you know, we would need to have a discussion about that. So we're gonna, I think, keep it for now, but I do want to, you know, just flag that for everybody that will be part of that conversation. And so I think that I know that there's a lot of conversation in the chat. I think what we heard in the last meeting was that Bowley's Lane and Reedbird are not ready to receive, you know, this traffic. So I do want to, we are going to have an in-depth discussion as task force members. As soon as everybody is sworn in, we will have an in-person discussion about all of this and be able to hash it out directly. But there may be some additional data that we want to have in the meantime. Any questions about the alternative sites moving that Monument Street site? John had brought up the site. It's a humongous parking lot close to City Hall. Right? Is that right, John? It's close to City Hall?
It was off of Falls Way, just to the east of Falls Way. I believe you said it was being used by the BGE.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can bring a picture of it up, but I sent it out as a to everybody, I believe.
Yeah, I'm looking for your email so that I can pull this up. And of course, my technology problems are continuing into the evening. So it's a big lot that's, if you go on 83, you can see it underneath, and it is used by BGE, but it's not owned by BGE. And I hardly see anybody parking in there. So between now and our next meeting, I will do a little bit more research on it and get back to everybody about that. It's not close to this area, but it is off of 83. So it is in an industrial area. Let me see if I can find it on CodeMap.
Oh, I have it. It's just to the east of North High Street and Hillen Street, north of Hillen Street, right at the intersection there.
Yeah, High Street and Hillen Street. It's a really big property. It's owned by Fallsway Properties. It's 531 North High Street. So I can't seem to pull it up if it's on the app. But we will do some more work on that to see what the opportunity there is. But certainly want to make sure that folks are looking at other places as well, and that we can add any of those to our lists. Let's see here. Are there any questions from task force members so far?
I do. Wait a minute.
Yes, go ahead.
One question I have about the sites that are on the list to be looked at. I remember, I think it was Mr. Bennett at the last meeting that said that they need at least 5.5 acres. So are all of these sites, do they meet that criteria?
I believe that's a great question. Let me see if I can find, that's not what I was looking for. Let me see if I can grab the presentation again on the alternative sites. I think the under the JFX one is not that big. I'm sure about that. The one on North Avenue is 4, I believe, acres. And let me just see here. And the one on apologies, I'm on a different computer, so I don't have everything popped up right away. Here we are.
Was it Howard and 25th that you're looking at?
Yeah, that's right. The one on Howard and 25th is the other one. Okay. This one, the current one is 5.5 acres, although this is not really used right here. This is the pumping station. This is Edison Highway, which we just talked about. North Avenue is about 8 acres there, privately owned land. Howard and 25th is 4.5 acres. That's a repeat.
Okay.
Falls Road was about 4.3 acres. And then the JFX one is definitely not that big.
Right. Okay.
But that is a good question.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So for the next meeting, I was interested in having additional stakeholders that we have not heard from to come and talk with us about how they use the site. So one of the stakeholders is the benefits districts. So Marianne, I'm wondering if you or someone from Midtown would be interested in talking about your use of the site. And I've already invited the Charles Village Benefits District to join us as well. Would that be something, Marianne, that you can arrange?
Yes, and I already know that information. I already checked it out.
Okay. Great.
You want me to wait and let you want to be in suspense or not?
Yeah, we're going to put it all in a package for next time.
Okay.
And Charles Village is also invited, and they have accepted. I have invited the Hamden businesses, merchants. I know that several of them as residents and also utilize the site. I'm wondering if anybody wants to hear from others in terms of what other types of stakeholders you'd like to hear from. Obviously, we'll have a public comment for members of the community, but we can certainly maybe hear from each of you separately or members of your community. Is there any other stakeholder group that you'd like to hear from?
I know when we first got together, we had requested Blue Water Baltimore. I would still like to hear about that in the context of community drop-off sites in general, as well as their impact and the role that they may play with the underground stream.
I see some nodding heads from the other task force members. Is that something you're interested in? Okay. Keandra, I see your hand up.
Yes, it was more in regard to trying to understand where 400 West North Avenue is, but in connection to your question, I believe someone from the MTA could be helpful for that particular site, seeing that it would intersect with potential plans for the BNP tunnel replacement project, as well as the light rail functionality, that site. So I'm just curious to hear more about that. And of course, I do have concerns about it being so close to Reservoir Hill as well. But
Yeah.
But I just think just having some input from the MTA could be helpful.
I wonder if we can line them up for the site visit so that we can see as they're, as we, are actually there to see it. And we'll invite them. We'll figure it out when that is, but I think that's a good suggestion. Thank you very much for that. Blue Water Baltimore in the context of, the other sites, and as particularly around, flooding, that kind of thing. We probably want to bring in some of the zero waste advocates as well, if we're going to bring in Blue Water Baltimore. Kevin, I saw your hand up and then go down.
That's correct. Some of the other comments answer my questions, but thank you.
Okay, Jed?
Thanks. Two things. One, I just wanted to point out, we keep referring to the full site footprint at the existing Sisson site, but the only usable area there is about, it's under 2 acres. It's like 1.8 acres of space because of the hill down to the Jones Falls Valley. And so I think that's partly why, we keep hearing that the site does not work for DPW, and even with an investment of funds, the site will not work for DPW safely. And that's sort of why I don't know. I mean, I would love to start exploring the other options, and perhaps even an option that is, focused on maybe not a physical site, but it just sounds pretty clear for me that it's not working for them and can't work for them. And then I also just wanted to register a concern again around the 2500 Huntington site, around MTA currently using it for their bus facilities and how that could impact transit reliability. So I think Keandra's idea was great. Maybe have, MTA talk to us about the 400 West North Avenue site. Maybe they could also talk to us about the 2500 Huntington site.
Okay, I hear that. Yep, I think that makes some sense. Keandra, you put your hand back up?
Yeah, I was just hoping for some more clarity on that. I didn't know that, Jed. Thanks for sharing. Because on the paperwork and presentations we've heard, they kept referring to it as 5.5 acres. So it'd be helpful to get some clarity around, do they just mean the space, or what is the usable space, maybe for Mr. Garbark or someone else, to clarify that, especially when we're looking at other sites to compare that. If they're, what do they mean by 5.5 acres or 28 acres? Like, is it always usable acres, or is it just the actual size of the site? It could be helpful to have both numbers available for each site, that the measured space versus the usable space.
Okay, so if I can weigh in on that. This is Alan Robinson, Deputy Director for Public Works. So I put this
slide up. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So when it was mentioned that we needed a little bit of larger space, they are talking about usable space, not just that it's 5.5 acres, but it's actually more usable to be able to access. So the buildings, the pooling area, because one of the biggest things that we're talking about right now, one of the concerns that we have at Sisson Street is that when we have on a Saturday morning when it's a backlog, we have folks out on Sisson, we have folks wrapped around to 28th, going across. So we want to make sure that if we had a larger usable space, we can actually have a queuing system inside the footprint to avoid having traffic spill out into the main roadway. So that's why the usable space would be important.
Thank you. I understand that. I was just trying to, for clarity, when we're looking at the documentation, if there's potential 5.5 usable space, there is only potential 1.8 usable. Do you see what I'm saying? So that when we're comparing the sites, we know what number to look at. So is the 5.5 on this sheet, does that refer to what is potential? Does it refer to only the measured space, or does it?
So the 5.5 that we're looking at right now is the actual Sisson Street location. That is the usable space that we have.
It is the usable space. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Although, Director, I think from my frequenting the area, this down here where my arrow is pointing isn't actually usable. It's a lot of like trees and stuff, right? Or is it part of the whole piece?
No, we're talking about the buildings. We're talking about the roll-off containers. We're talking about the ramp going up. We're talking about the containers on the back end. So while you as a visitor do not use the full 5, we're talking about the availability for space to have our roll-off containers and trucks circling around. I'll let our facilities manager, Mr. Steve Strickland, kind of speak to that a little bit now. He put his hand up for a quick second. So if you want to add to that, Steve.
Go ahead. Mr. Strickland, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I was trying to get off mute. Of course,
You're fine.
the statement of the last 4 years, I'm trying to get off mute. But yes, Alan hit the nail on the head. Is that the usable space also includes where vehicles and large trucks need to move around, and if they have to have safe space to be able to do that. While that 5.5 acres looks good, it also includes those things and the moving of the vehicles that have to go in there and be safe around citizens. So Alan hit the nail on the head already. I just wanted to echo on that.
Can I add something here? This is Khalil.
Go ahead.
Just something to the question, if I understand the question correctly. So the needed space really depends, or the optimum space really depends on the geometry of the location, right? And how the traffic for us flows. So while 2, maybe 3 acres will be perfect in a perfect location, in a different location you might need, or a 5 to 5 acres maybe of land that is going to be required because of the geometry. You're looking at the one at Sisson Street, for example. That is not a perfect flow for an operation like ours, obviously. So in order to get it fixed for a geometry like this, you're probably going to need 5 or 6 acres. While if you get, let's say, a perfect square, you might be able to get away maybe with 3 acres of land, or 3.5 acres of land. So always depending on how the geometry of the existing land that it comes to you. And Stephen, I hope I answered that correctly.
And I just want to clarify that on this diagram,
Yes, sir, you did.
That we're seeing, this piece over here, or my cursor is not what we're talking about. It's only that enclosed in red. So just to be clear for the viewing.
I'm sorry, I might still be misunderstanding here. Are we saying that we need 5.5 acres? Because if you measure the fence line in Google Earth of the existing facility, it is 1.7 acres. That from the fence line that is currently used, all of the paved areas, all of the buildings, the drive-up ramp, the storage areas for the dumpsters, that area that is not covered in trees is 1.705 acres. And so that's where I'm getting a little confused here. That space versus the total area of land, because if you go by the property,
not optimal,
5.5.
but it's not optimal.
Right. And so I think that's what I'm trying to understand is, is DPW saying right now we're using only 1.7 acres and that's bad, and we need 5.5 acres and we cannot get 5.5 acres out of the current site? That's my question.
No, this is Matt. We would love 5 acres. That would be a dream. We don't need that. If we're just looking to relocate the same facility, yeah, it's much smaller. Like I mentioned, we've crammed a lot into a very awkward size, and it is really not usable to its full extent. So the whole footprint is 5.5 acres, but it is awkwardly laid out and does not allow us to use it as well as we would like. So if we had a square, for instance, like the deputy mayor mentioned, of 3 acres or 2 acres even, or something like that, you know, that would be very different than looking at this site where it is very awkward and we can't really use it.
So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So as we're ruling out options, we've ruled out things that were below 5.5 on that premise. So that's a false premise. It's really 2 acres of square land that you're looking for.
3.
What 3? Okay.
I mean, we have not done that level of analysis to see what we would, the current site is 5.5. We are not using it. I mean, it's clearly an awkward fit. If we needed to relocate it, we would look for something. Our desire would be 5 acres, but you know, obviously we will make it work with whatever is needed.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I've been trying to.
Go ahead, Sandy, and then I'll add. Go ahead. I just want to wait. Hold on, Sandy. Keandra, were you finished? Do you have something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to make, so the ideal is 5. You could work with less. The reason why 5.5 is needed now because of the awkward shape of the land. I just want to make sure I have it right. Okay, thank you.
But I think the other piece of this is the queuing, because there's the space that you need for the trucks and the bins and the recycling and the zero waste stuff and all of that. The building for the workers, and then there's the queuing, which we know has been very problematic for over here. So I think that's where the sort of what can we sacrifice, what we can't, based on acreage is something to think about. Sandy, go ahead, and then there's some other folks with their hands up. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's good to understand that 3 acres will work, and that it all depends on the accessibility and the circulation that the site enables. So that will be what makes it to be a convenient and efficient site. And so that's what we really need to be looking for. Another thing that I'd like to bring up is previously we discussed composting, and I think that is something that we should encourage to happen again at our markets, because that kind of composting was very successful at the Waverly Farmers Market.
I'm working on it. I am working on it. We anticipate that it will be back online very shortly, either before the holidays or right after. I am working on it.
Good. Very good. Thank you.
But we're also trying to, as a city, go for, much larger sense of composting, which is why the Bowley's Lane site will be a compost, I believe, a facility, or is going to be the compost facility. There's a pilot program that's going to be started for pickup of composting. So it's a big deal, but it's good. It's good to have the discussion, but I am really working with DPW, the market. We're very close in making it happen back at the market.
I think that's great, because
You should have seen the emails I got when it stopped. Don't you worry.
I'm sure you did. And that shows the demand and how we need to meet it and in the best way. And I'd actually like to know more about all the composting the city is trying to program, because I think it's terribly important. And many of us do not know the extent of it.
Right. I know we're at our time. This idea keeps popping up, and at some point we need to have the discussion. So I'll put it right now, and then we'll figure out when we're going to have it. And I need DPW to be ready for it. One of the things that occurred during COVID was that we had, because we did not have recycling, but we had recycling trucks at certain places in the community. And whether or not having just to have a robust conversation at some point about whether to go back to something like that, for whether if Sisson ends up closing, whether something like that could still occur. Now, Director Garbark might already have the no, it can't because of X, Y, and Z. But if he does, he can certainly chime in right now. But if not, then at least to sort of look at what happened during that time. There were 14 drop-off centers across with, in my district, it was at Mervo. And also I'm so close to Sisson that, we still had Sisson. So I had two. I think I was the only one that had two, or the 12th probably had two also. But how convenient was that? I don't think that Mervo would want to have the full center there, but would there be, something like that? That kind of keeps coming up if that's a reality or not. And I would ask DPW to come prepared at one meeting to have that kind of discussion. The extent to which bulk trash scheduling can be done in a way that now we're doing it on Saturdays. Some folks are calling and then they don't get their bulk trash for a 3-month appointment. And so they end up just taking it to Sisson anyway. So those kinds of conversations, I think the task force needs to have. So we will set aside time for that and make sure that DPW is prepared to give us some information on that. So I hope that that's okay with the task force that we do that. Our next meeting, I definitely want to focus on some other folks that are stakeholders, just because we've already started to program that meeting. We will have our site visit in January to these sites, and then Boley's and Sisson as well. So it will be a Saturday, just January 10th. And then we will continue the conversation with DPW about those other solid waste pieces we just talked about. And then I'd like to plan an in-person meeting which the site visit will be in person. I'm sure we'll have discussions at that time, but we will have swearing in, everybody sworn in by the time January comes around, so that we can have an in-person discussion where we're really digging in on making and having a discussion face to face. So that's my plan. I hope you all feel like that's a good plan moving forward. And so again, this next swearing in is this coming Thursday, and at 4:00 at City Hall. So those of you who have not been sworn in, I hope to see you there. There is also another that we've just had the opportunity to know about, is the 22nd at noon, in case you can't make the 11th. But I need everybody sworn in by the end of the year so that we can make we can move forward. So hopefully those that have not been sworn in can make one of those two dates. Anything else for the good of the order before I close us out? I see 3 hands. I'll take those hands unless there's some more. Keandra, go ahead.
It's okay. I will
I
wait
see Kristen. I see Kristen and Samantha as well. So sorry about that. Keandra, are you okay? Or you want to say?
I can hold until the next meeting.
Okay. Great. So Kristen, I haven't heard from you yet. I'll hear from you first.
Yeah, this is just a quick follow-up, and maybe this is something we can get by the next meeting. I think at some point we had asked about getting a breakdown of who comes to Sisson Street because of there had been a lot of different conversations about people coming from different areas, a lot of local people, a lot of people not so local, a lot of haulers being turned away. So I was wondering is that something that we're going to get at some point before we do site visits and stuff, just to get a good understanding of who is actually making up that full 89 tons that we get in a year? Because I know we got that number, which is really great to see amongst the other sites, but who actually makes that up? Because like, it'd be good to see kind of where everybody's coming from and how much the local neighborhood is using it versus people coming from other sides of the city or even outside. So if that's something we could get by next time or even before the end of the year when we meet in person, would be awesome.
So good evening, Kristen. Thank you very much for that question. I got this, Councilwoman. So we did do an analysis on that, and I will package that and have that mailed out to the task force first thing tomorrow morning. The team did a great job in doing the analysis over that for the last 2 years, so we can kind of determine what type of materials we're receiving, where we may be receiving those materials, how that has overlaid within the various residential dropped-off centers that we currently have, as well as the history of SR complaints for illegal dumping within those footprints. So I wanted to package that all up. I will send that out to the task force tomorrow. I'll send it over to Councilwoman Odette and to our chair, Ms. Dana Moore, to review, but then I'll get it out to the team.
Super. Thanks so much. And Kristen, thanks for bringing that up as a follow-up. Thanks, Deputy Director, for having folks take that analysis. I think that's going to be super helpful for us. So thank you for that. I see Samantha, your hand's up.
Yes, I would like to request that the Remington businesses be included on the same meeting that the Hamden Merchant Association joined.
Sure, that's fine.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, Khalil, your hand is up.
Yes. I just wanted, I hate to put a dam on this somehow, some way, but I think I have to say this. As we look for all the other options that are available, I wanted to make it very clear that there are no funding at this point for any of those locations. Nothing is even in the next 6 years or so. So as we start thinking about this and we start looking, and even if we find the perfect location, that it does not mean that if we find the perfect location, unless enough funding comes out of the Sisson Street at this point sale, that will satisfy putting some money into the new location. So I don't want the expectations we find the perfect location, the funding is going to be there, because at this point there is no funding for this project. Just wanted to make sure everybody understand, just as we start looking at everything around the area.
Thank you, Director, for that reminder. I will say that the Planning Commission is starting to have their hearings about the capital budget starting in January. The capital budget is where we would see any funding in this regard. We'll make sure that the task force has the dates for that, but also that our recommendation would have to include some thinking around that, whether it's a recommendation to put some dollars into the capital budget in some way. We'll certainly make sure that that's part of the recommendation, or any other creative financing that we can come up with. And Jed, your hand is up.
Yeah, thanks. I think just to add on to the Deputy Mayor's point, I think the other important thing to recognize is we do not have the funding to do the rehabilitation of Sisson Street either. And so even if the recommendation was to keep it open and rehabilitate it, there's no money for that. I was sort of like trying to still understand what DPW is saying here. I'm not sure if you can, if my screen is shared or not.
We can see it. Go ahead.
This is what I'm trying to understand here. It's like, it does not appear that there are 5.5 usable acres here. To me, if you look at the fence line and where the tree line is and the slope down to the Jones Falls Valley.
There's some, Jed, there's some pop-ups there that are kind of in the way. There you go. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. So like, I'm not sure the 1.67 is what the actual like existing site footprint that we are using today. that's what's there. And so I'm not really sure, like, I'm just still confused about the sort of 5.5 acres conversation, because it looks like that's not feasible, because there's like a retaining wall along the edge here, just to the right of the pumping station, the sewage lift transfer station, and the rest is like a really steep graded slope down to the proposed Jones Falls Valley site. So if we could get a better like clarity from DPW on what potentially could be usable there, I think that would be really helpful.
When you say
Meaning,
usable
like,
there, when you say usable there, Jed, are you speaking specifically at the current Sisson Street site?
Yeah, like, is there anything beyond what I just sort of drew out in Google Earth beyond that 1.67 or 1.675 acres? Or is it, you know, because the whole site we keep showing in that like outline is 5.5 acres, but right now we're using 1.67.
You're absolutely correct. So what we said was ideally. We started the conversation off asking ideally what type of space we would like.
Yeah, ideal if you had
So
money.
our conversation has been around ideally what we would like. A lot of it has been usability of the space. As we stated, that this current Sisson Street location is awkward. The other piece we talked about was having the ability to queue vehicles off the street so that we're not actually blocking traffic. So ideally, we are looking at 5. We're not saying that we absolutely have to have it, but the question was ideally what would we like, and that's what we were looking at.
Great, and that's super helpful. So I guess my follow-up question would be, can 2 or 3 acres get squeezed out of the current site, or no? Because if we're maxed out
at current site, we're maxed out.
Okay.
At the current Sisson Street site, we are maxed out on usability of that because of, like you said, we have a whole hill behind us. We have grassy areas behind us. And so we do not have the funding to do any of the grading or renovation necessary to maximize that any further than we already have in the build out.
Okay, great. That's super helpful. Thank you so much.
Okay. I appreciate everybody asking clarifying questions so that we can get the information. So that's super helpful. I'm going to close us out today, and I want to thank you all for being here and for your great questions. I want to thank Marie from Planning for joining us, and hopefully she'll join us for other discussions, because I think that Planning will have some important insight. Want to thank Samantha for her presentation for Remington, and DPW for always being available for all these questions, and for all of you for taking another Monday out of your out of your day, out of your week, out of your month to join us. We will be meeting again next week at 7 p.m. virtually. We will be sending out the link because it changes every time. I don't know why, but it does. Hopefully by then we will have the website. Dana, I thought I saw the hand that you're using raised. Did you want to add anything towards the end here?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to clarify that we do have 3 task force members that are committed to being sworn in on December 11, and we need you to stay committed to that date. And I have one person who is going to be sworn in on December 22nd, and then that will have us all covered. But
wonderful.
Yeah, please don't change your chairs. We're going to keep
Okay. I appreciate that clarity. Thank you. Yeah. And thanks for setting this up, Dana. Okay, everybody, have a good week. We will see you next week, same time. And we'll also have a discussion on when we believe would be a good time for public testimony in our deliberations. But I do want to get some other information under our belt before we do that. Okay? Excellent. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Take care now.